This is things I wish I could say in Sunday school. I want to share some thoughts and ideas that are different than what we usually hear. My goal is to be really honest rather than inherently faith-promoting. I hope these ideas may spark some interesting discussions with your friends, families, or classes. Please enjoy. This is the lesson for June 3rd through 9th, Mosiah chapters 29 through Alma chapter 4. Today's topics are the influence of political leaders and divisions among the people, and my take on the pride cycle. There's a lot of politics in this lesson. Frankly, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near a Sunday school class for this lesson because of past experiences I've had where outspoken people feel entitled to express their political opinions in church. It's wrong to do this, but it's almost always tolerated. Reading through the material, there is so much that reinforces my political views. But if I think about how someone on the opposite side would read the same text, I think they would also find a way for it to reinforce their opposite views. I won't compare what happened in the text to anything happening now because that's a can of worms I don't want to open. Church should be a place where all are welcome. Our personal political views, because they are divisive, are not welcome in that setting. The lesson begins with the issue of Mosiah's succession. His sons don't want to be king, and Mosiah is wise enough to know that choosing anyone else would result in civil unrest. So Mosiah proposes that people vote on the men to govern the people, and he calls them judges. I want to point out the misogyny here. Women never enter the discussion at all. Not at all. Mosiah cites King Noah's influence on the people to sin as a primary reason to transition away from kings. Political leaders have tremendous influence. Anytime someone has an audience, they have influence. The greater the audience, the greater the influence, and influence is a form of power. People get elected in large part because of gaining an audience, and once elected, it grows even more. Elected officials are in front of crowds, making public statements, people are listening to them. It's a lot of influence. Which brings us to nepotism. Alma the Elder gathered a multitude to witness his son recover from his miraculous visitation by an angel. Then Alma the Younger went around sharing his story to all the people. And Alma the Elder made his son the high priest of the church and stepped down. Lots of moves were made that gave Alma the Younger immense influence, probably second to King Mosiah. It's no surprise that Alma is elected chief judge of the people. We see the nepotism play out again 8 years later when Alma the Younger gives the chief judge position to one of his high priests in the church, Mosiah. When I was young, I thought it was noble that Alma would step down from power. And he did to an extent, but now I think that he still had tremendous power over the chief judge seat because he placed his buddy there. So what lessons can we extract from this? First, influence has to do with money and fame. People with influence do not automatically deserve our attention, and definitely not our deference to their messages. As always, we should carefully consider our beliefs so we're not easily swayed and make our choices with clarity. So ask yourself, who is influencing you? Are you happy and at peace with the direction that you're being pulled to? Second, what is my influence? Who am I impacting with my choices and the things that I say? We all influence the people close to us. Some of us influence a larger circle because of our profession or coaching or a calling or whatever. Just take a few minutes and consider the ways that you influence others. This lesson is kind of the beginning of the pride cycle in the Book of Mormon, where the people get prosperous and then they have a downfall and get humble and then get prosperous again, etc. There have been small moments here and there prior, but this is when it really starts to get into full swing. I like to look at the totality of the evidence when I think about things like this. I did this with the New Testament too, and Christ's life. There, Christ loved everybody, and the only people he really took issue with were hypocrites, especially when they tried to use religion to justify inflicting harm on others. In the Book of Mormon, lesson manuals want the takeaway to be that pride rose, which is a sin, and then God humbled them. Basically, God blesses the people, which results in pride, and then God humbles the people with destruction. It puts God in a position of cruel puppet master. I don't think that's right. I'm not on board with a punitive God. When I look at the totality of the evidence of the pride cycle, I think wealth disparity is the primary factor that primes the society for a downfall. And I don't blame God for it. Every time costly apparel is mentioned, the clothes are costly compared to other clothes. It's the disparity that matters. Whenever it says that the people became prosperous, it's never all the people. Prosperity is always in comparison to struggling economically. This wealth disparity can be viewed as a form of pride, but pride is more general. We can think about pride in many ways, and pride is considered a sin categorically. Basically, we can interpret pride however we want in order to justify ourselves. Wealth disparity is defined more clearly, and I don't think it is really considered a sin by most people. Yet, it leads to the downfall of societies. In a people, wealth disparity creates the opposite of Zion. The people cannot be one, because the wealthy people tend to not want to associate with the poor people. They want division. There's greater power for the wealthy in the separation. Wanting separation from certain people is ungodly, whether it's because of economics, education, skin color, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or anything. Wanting to be separate is wrong. But it's also very common, and it's pretty normalized in society. I just want us to be able to see it for what it is. Zion is about accepting everyone, not about getting rid of everyone who isn't like us. Any divisive attitudes work against us building Zion. I do think that large wealth disparity is a huge signifier of an unhealthy society. It's pretty bad in the US right now. When this has been studied, predistribution factors like equal access to education and healthcare and a well-regulated labor market do much more to reduce the wealth gap than redistribution like welfare. I do think a doctor should earn more than a landscaper. Someone that works harder, smarter, and with more expertise should be compensated for that. But that's not really the problematic wealth gap. That's just the difference between upper middle class and middle class. The problem is our systems that reinforce and increase the wealth gap. Our tax system, where the very wealthy pay a smaller percentage of earnings in taxes than the middle class because their accountants and lawyers take advantage of the system. Then those rich people pat themselves on the back and sort of mock the rest of the world for not taking advantage of the system like they do. But the rich gatekeep everyone else out. No one but the rich can do what they do. It's wrong and immoral. I do believe our systems, which were set up by rich people with influence to increase their wealth and influence, are doing exactly what they were designed to do, but it's ruining our society. We need better systems. What do you believe is the primary factor or factors of the pride cycle? Do you believe God is intervening in it, or is it more the natural results of human behavior? That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. Please share with family and friends. Until next time.